All right, everybody, welcome back to Rare Elvis Photos. It is about time, right? It's about time that I have the actual physical book and then I do some reading out of it. I know I opened up a section and read a little bit in one of the videos the other day. You probably saw that. And you know I read some of the audiobook. Well, not the audiobook, but the ebook for y'all. When we talked about the terrifying abuse that Riley suffered at the hands of Michael Edwards, and really, by extension, Priscilla B.
Prissy B should lose the Presley name.
So let's get to reading. You know, I mean, I think we deserve to read this. As you can see, From Here to the Great Unknown, a memoir. Lisa Marie Presley, Riley Keough. Beautiful pictures right there of Riley and her mom. And no Prissy anywhere except for a dumb hand with her body cut off right there. I should get a marker and exit. Anyways, for you Priscilla fans, I do not apologize. Sorry, that's how I feel. Born to an American myth and raised in the wilds of Graceland, Lisa Marie Presley tells her whole story for the first time in this raw, riveting, singular memoir, faithfully completed by her daughter, Riley Keough. Dollar, by the almighty dollar, huh? In 2022, Lisa Marie Presley asked her daughter for help to finally finish her long gestating memoir. A month later, Lisa Marie had passed away. And the world would never know her story in her own words, would never know the passionate, joyful, caring, and complicated woman that Riley loved and now grieved. Riley got the tapes that her mother had recorded for the book, lay in her bed, and listened as Lisa Marie told story after story about smashing golf courts with her friends in the yards of Graceland and the unconditional love she felt from her father. I don't want to do any spoilers here, so let's get past the Riley Keough. All right. Yep, that's worse than my signature. Riley Keough signature, From Here to the Great Unknown. Adorable picture of Lisa right there. Anybody know who these two ladies are? Is this Ginger Alden's little sister? Or anybody like that? I don't know. I don't know who those people are. That's probably actually after Elvis passed, maybe. I don't know. The book feels nice in the hand. Look at these great little pictures. I don't know when she took these. Maybe she was at a photo booth with Danny Keough or something. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke. And the whores and bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? You want to screw up the works? You want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes when everybody's asleep. So anyways, looks like there's a poem here. So if you get the book, you can read the poem. I thought it might be something of Lisa's, but a guy named Charles Bukowski. Lisa Marie's voice will be in this font. Riley's voice will be in this font. Let me look at that. I think, does that mean... I thought maybe the two of these might be Riley. Anyways, let's get going. The preface. Beautiful picture of Lisa. Look, she's so happy with Riley. In the years before she died, my mother, Lisa Marie Presley, began writing her memoir. Though she tried various approaches and sat for many book interviews, she couldn't figure out how to write about herself. She didn't find herself interesting, even though, of course, she was. She didn't like talking about herself. She was insecure. She wasn't sure what her value to the public was other than being Elvis's daughter. She was so racked with self-criticism that working on the book became incredibly difficult for her. I don't think that she fundamentally understood how or why her story should be told. And yet, she felt a burning desire to tell it. After she'd grown exceedingly frustrated, she said to me, "Pookie, I don't know how to write my book anymore. Can you write it with me?" "Of course I can," I said. The last 10 years of her life had been so brutally hard. that she was only able to look back on everything through that lens. She felt I could have a more holistic view of her life than she could, so I agreed to help her with it, not thinking much of the commitment, assuming we would write it together over time. A month later, she passed away. Days and weeks and months of grief drifted by. Then I got the tapes of the memoir interviews that she'd done. I was in my house, sitting on the couch. My daughter was sleeping. I was so afraid to hear my mother's voice. The physical connection we have to the voices of our loved ones is so profound. I decided to lay in my bed because I know how heavy grief makes my body feel. I began listening to her speak. It was incredibly painful, but I couldn't stop. It was like she was in the room, talking to me. I instantly felt like a child again, and I burst into tears. My mommy. The tone of her voice. I was 8 years old again, riding in our car. Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl came on the radio, and my dad pulled over and made us all get out to dance on the side of the road. I thought of my mom's beautiful smile, her laugh. I thought of my dad trying to resuscitate her lifeless body when he found her. Then I was back in my car seat watching my mom's face in the rearview mirror as she sang along to Aretha Franklin, our car barreling down the Pacific Coast Highway with the windows open. Then I was in the hospital right after my new baby brother was born, bombarded by memories like a corny flashback montage in a movie, but real. I wanted her back. It's very profound and emotional already. Just the deepness of it, just right here. You know, I thought of my dad, Danny, trying to resuscitate her lifeless body when he found her. And why is that profound? Danny wasn't married to Lisa anymore. Danny lived there. And from what Riley said at the Nashville show, her dad never left Lisa. Lisa left her dad for Michael Jackson. And even though they never really got back together from what Riley said, Danny's love never wavered. And of course, we know that Danny was taking the twins to school when he came back and found Lisa and tried to save her. So let's keep that in mind when we think about Danny Keough and we think about Riley and the daughter that Lisa and Danny raised. Regardless of how you feel about Priscilla, and perhaps that maybe Riley's not standing up to Priscilla enough, she stood up to Priscilla by putting this book out. When we hear some of the details in here and read through some of the details in here, you will no longer be a Priscilla Presley fan. Priscilla Bayou. Priscilla Wagner. Priscilla Garcia Garibaldi. I don't know what her name is, but it's not Presley. The early parts of the book are mostly her voice. In the tapes, she speaks at length about her Graceland childhood, the death of her father, the dreadful aftermath, her relationship with her mother, her difficult teen years. She's frank and funny about my father, Danny. She talks openly about the relationship with Michael Jackson. She's painfully candid about her later drug addiction and about the perils of fame. There are times, too, where it sounds like she wants to burn the world to the ground. The other times, she displays compassion and empathy, all facets of the woman who was my mother. Each of those strands, beautiful and broken, forged together in early trauma, crashing together at the end of her life. The tapes are raw, with all the starts and stops that people have when they speak. Wherever possible, I wrote it exactly as she said it. In other cases, I've edited my mother's word for clarity, or to get at what I know was the root of what she was trying to convey. What mattered most to me was feeling like the end result sounded like her, that I could instantly recognize her in the pages, and I can. Now, I know I've seen some comments about this, about her not using Lisa's words exactly throughout the whole book. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I mean, I would like to see an unedited version of the tapes, whether there's cuss words, whether there's horrible details. Now, once again, it's not my right. It was Lisa's right, and I don't know if Lisa would have put those in an actual book. I'm not sure if Lisa would have put things in there about Michael Edwards and Priscilla not doing anything about it. But Riley did. So, let's applaud Riley for that. Okay. But there are things she doesn't talk about in the tapes. Things she didn't get to. Especially in the later part of her life. Now, I don't know about that. Why would she not have things in the tapes in the later part of her life? She was asking Riley to write her book. Why would she not keep recording tapes and tapes and tapes and writing things down in journals? It sounds like that's the kind of Lisa that I would know. We saw each other 5 times a week throughout my life, and we lived together full-time until I was 25. Where there are gaps in her story, I fill them in. The greatest strength for this aspect of this book was also one of my mother's biggest flaws. She was constitutionally incapable of hiding anything from me. I hope that in telling her story, my mother will resolve into a 3-dimensional character, into the woman we knew and loved so dearly. I've come to understand that her burning desire to tell her story was born of a need to both understand herself and be understood by others in full, for the first time in her life. I aim not only to honor my mother, but to tell a human story in what I know is an extraordinary circumstance. Everyone who ever met her experienced a force. Lisa had passion, she had protection, she was loyal, she loved, and she had a deep engagement with her spirit that was incredibly powerful. Whatever spiritual force my grandfather possessed undoubtedly ran through my mother's veins. When you were with her, you could feel it. That's right, Lisa was her daddy's girl. Lisa was a spitting image of Elvis, and that's why we have a huge grief over losing her, and of course why Riley would have the deepest grief. And so would have Ben. My gosh, what a horrific thing to happen. Ben goes, her mom goes, Riley's left alone with Prissy B. I am aware that the recordings my mother left are a gift. So often that's all that's left of a loved one is a saved and a resaved voicemail, a short video on a phone, some favorite photos. I take the privilege of these tapes very seriously. I wanted this book to be as intimate as all of those hours I spent listening to her, like the nights she'd spend in bed with us, listening to coyotes howl. I gotta stop a second, I'm getting a little choked up here. In his poem, Bincy Poplars, Felled 1879, Gerard Manley Hopkins writes of that set of chopped down trees. Aftercomers cannot guess the beauty bin. I want this book to make clear the beauty bin that was my mother. So that's a wonderful introduction. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna get emotional here again, probably. Upstairs at Graceland, I felt my father could change the weather. He was a god to me, a chosen human being. He had that thing where you could see his soul. If he was in a shitty mood, it was shitty outside. If it was storming, it was because he was about to go off. I believed back then he could make it storm. Make him happy, make him laugh. That was my whole world. If I knew something was funny to him, I would do it as much as I could to get some mileage out of it to entertain him. When we leave Graceland, the fans would always shout, "Elvis, Elvis," in their southern accents. I mocked someone doing it once, and he fell out laughing. He just died. He thought that was the funniest thing that he'd ever heard. Another time, I was lying in my hamburger-shaped bed, a huge black and white fur bed that had steps leading up to it, and he was sitting next to me in a chair, and I looked at him and I said, "How much money do you have?" And he fell out of the chair laughing. I couldn't figure out why that was so funny. I could hear Elvis's laugh just going on and on and on. I was super connected to him. Our closeness was a lot tighter than I have ever let on to anyone in the past. He loved me dearly and was totally devoted. 1,000% there for me as much as he could be, in spite of everyone around him. He gave me as much of himself as he possibly could, more than he could give anybody else, and yet I feared him too. He was intense. You didn't want him to get angry with you. If I ever upset him, or if he was ever mad at me at all, I felt like everything was ending. I couldn't deal with that. When he got upset with me, I took it so personally. I was just shattered. I wanted his approval on everything. There was one time I popped my knee and he said, "Damn it, why'd you go and hurt yourself?" It devastated me. My mom was an Air Force brat. So back there, I think I might have mentioned this before, when your child hurts himself, you hurt. I know that whenever my kids, and I always tell them, "Hey, Weston, don't do this, And sometimes he does it, he gets hurt, and it upsets me. It upsets me that he got hurt, and I wish he would have listened to me because I don't want him being hurt. I don't want him to feel that, but we all have to feel that pain in order to grow. All right, so Prissy B was an Air Force brat. No, hold on. Yeah. Prissy B was an Air Force brat. She met my dad at 14, and her parents allowed it. It was a different time. Back then, women were admitted into the hospital while they were in labor. They get knocked out and wake up with a baby. Prissy went into the hospital looking glamorous, beautiful, and when she came to, she was handed a child. My mother told me that she thought about trying to fall off her horse to cause a miscarriage. And I think that she did. I think she fell off a couple times. I remember Memphis Mafia talking about stories of it. She didn't want to gain pregnancy weight. She thought that it wouldn't be a good look for her as Elvis's wife. There were so many women after him, all of them beautiful. And she wanted his undivided attention. She was so upset that she was pregnant that she initially would only eat apples and eggs and never gain so much weight. I was a pain in her ass immediately, and I always felt she didn't want me. I believe in energy in utero, so maybe I already felt her vibe of trying to get rid of me. Eventually, she just kind of decided to keep me, but at the time, she didn't have great maternal instincts. That might be what's wrong with me. And I know that's going to make a lot of you mad. If this is something that's true, why in the world put it out there to the world? Prissy, why in your book maybe, or why tell your daughter that you didn't want her, that you tried to get rid of her, that you didn't eat, that you didn't take care of yourself so you could stay skinny, you didn't care. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Energy in utero. All right, so this is Riley. So these two little thingies here, it's going to be Riley. Riley says, when I was little, I would often watch my mother do her makeup. There were 2 sinks in her bathroom, and in between them, a huge vanity. My mother had more makeup than any little girl could dream of. Mac and Kevin Aucoin, drawers and drawers of brushes and lip pencils, eyeshadows, and the most famous of MAC lip colors, Spice. She would line her lips, the Cupid's bow she loved, and that we all inherited from her father, Riley, your grandfather, okay, your grandpa, Elvis. Looking into her small mirror on the vanity, and I thought they were so perfect. To me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I looked at her and said, "How old are you?" It was the first time her age had ever been something I considered. She laughed and said, "I'm 28. How young that was. My mom fundamentally felt she was broken, unlovable, not beautiful. There was a profound sense of unworthiness in her, and I could not ever really figure out why. I have spent my whole life," Riley says, "trying to work out the answer. My mother was an incredibly complicated person and deeply misunderstood. In my family, there's a long history of young girls becoming mothers. My great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother all had their first babies young, when they were just babies themselves. As I got older, I remember wishing that I could have been my mother's mother and my grandmother's mother. I began to recognize what all of the young mothers were missing. I've been told," this is Lisa. So let me know what, let's go back here real quick. So we know Anne had a baby when she was, Anne's mother had Anne, that's Prissy's mom, when she was 16 or 17. Priscilla was born to a mother that was, I think, 17, 18, 19, something like that. And then Prissy had Lisa at, what, 62? Not 62, I mean 22? I think that was it, about that age. Let me know if I'm right or wrong there. Leave it in the comments. So that is young, but it's not young enough to love your child, to be a good mother. I know so many young mothers that live for their children. Age does not matter. Character matters. And I don't believe Priscilla had any. It's my opinion. And maybe her mom, Anne, had some until Jamie Wagner died, her real dad. And then she lost all of her character, stealing Priscilla away from the Wagners. So they not only lost their son, they lost their granddaughter. That's what was instilled in Prissy B. All right, let's go to Lisa here. I've been told that mine was a sweet birth story. My dad was very nervous. Everyone was. They had lots of dress rehearsals, trying to find the quickest route to the hospital. They had done a few test runs, and everything was fine. Then Jerry Schilling, one of my dad's oldest friends, who was driving, almost went to the wrong hospital. Then I was born. My mom wanted to look good for my dad, so she decided to put on false eyelashes before he came in to see us. But she was drugged still and glued them to the mirror instead of her eyelids. I can see that. You're looking in the mirror and you think it's your eyes and you put it up there. Woo, that's some good, I can't say the word. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying it back there, for reading it. But after there was a press conference, my mom and my dad walked out of the hospital, did their wave, everyone taking pictures. So the press was always there right out of the gate from the day I was born. Then they took me home to Graceland. So this is Riley here. She's going to fill us in on everything that we already know. And I get why Riley put this little section about Graceland. 99% of us know, but for the 1% of you that don't know, this is going to be very interesting for you, and we'll get through it as quickly as possible for those that know all about it. Graceland was built in 1939 by Doc and his wife, Tom and Ruth Moore. The land had been gifted to the family by the wife's Aunt Grace, so they named it after her. Elvis liked the name so much that he kept it when in 1957 and paid $102K for the 10,000 square foot house and 14 acres. He kept the name as Graceland. Back then, the area was still country. There was nothing out there 5 miles south of Memphis. Now, that's a little interesting fact. Graceland wasn't even part of the city itself until 1969. So, all the way from 57 to 69, folks, was it rural country? I don't think it was rural country. But, you know, who went to Graceland in 69? I know that Nancy Pease, who was Gary Pepper's nurse, I think she mentioned she went to Graceland in 69, 68. Well, actually, she was somewhere around that time. Anyways, maybe a little later than that. Gary Pepper was certainly there. In May of 57, Elvis's mom, Gladys, dad, Vernon, and grandmother, Minnie Mae, moved in. Elvis came a little later on June 26, 57, because he was filming Jailhouse Rock and there was renovations to do at the house. After Elvis's return from a stint in the Army, others came to live there, including Charlie Hodge, Joe Esposito of the so-called Memphis Mafia. We know that other people live there as well, like Billy Smith. We got to give Billy Smith a shout-out because he gets written out of all of this. Billy was Elvis's cousin and one of the closest people in his life, if not the closest. Jerry Schilling, great friend, lived there a lot of times, and then so did Larry Geller. All right. So, and then Billy Smith had lived in the back property there towards the end of his life, maybe sooner, like earlier earlier as well. Now let's continue here. Elvis's grandmother room was upstairs, but when his mother died, Minnie Mae moved downstairs. Huh, interesting. Elvis and Priscilla built a nursery upstairs in 67 when Priscilla became pregnant, and that's where my mom's room was. Lisa's room was probably where Minnie Mae's room used to be. Compared to mansions now, Graceland doesn't seem like much of one. Visitors are often struck by how small it is. But when Elvis bought it, it was not only a mansion, but represented so much more than mere size and acreage. Until 53, the Presley family had lived in humble circumstances. Graceland was a physical manifestation of the most incredible American dream come to life. Elvis had been a small-town boy in a small-town family mired in poverty. But he'd made it beyond big, miraculously becoming a godlike figure, the biggest star on the planet. Now, that's Riley right now. Good for you, Riley. That's true. Yet he remained a southern boy who simply got to buy his beloved mama a big old house. He was determined to make his new home an opulent place, and what you do when you're from the South is move the entire family in. The aunties, the cousins, everyone. Bring in the chickens. Bring in the sheeps. Anyways, when you come from poverty, your responsibility is to bring everybody with you. And that's what he did. The house is surrounded by a big rock wall with the famous music gates in front and a guard gate to the right. As you drive up to the winding road, 4 giant white pillars rise in front of you, guarded by a pair of lion sculptures. The whole place smells like the South, especially in the summertime. There's a soft summer air and fireflies at night. Beautiful trees ring the house, magnolias, elms, willow oaks, red maples, pecans, black cherries. I wonder if Elvis planted all those or had them put there or whether they were there. That's a beautiful, beautiful mixture of trees. Magnolias, willow oaks, elms, pecans, red maples, black cherries. Once you enter through the front door, immediately to the right is the living room, with its iconic stained glass blue peacocks, single TV, and grand piano. In front of you, stairs lead up to Elvis and my mom's bedrooms. On the left, in the dining room, accented by plush floor-to-ceiling drapes above a black marble floor. Oh, sorry, maybe let me read that again. On the left is the dining room, accented by plush floor-to-ceiling drapes above a black marble floor. The kitchen is also on the first floor, as is the famous jungle room, baby, with its shag carpeting and indoor waterfall, which was created by Elvis and Linda. Nothing to do with Prissy B. Okay? Pretty little thing waiting on the king down in the jungle room was Linda Thompson, not Priscilla, people. For some people that think that. Downstairs, you'll find the pool room with its with its upholstered walls and ceiling. It's another place like the jungle room to hide out. Out back of Graceland are the stables, the racquetball court, and next to Vernon's office, a swing set that was my mom's. My brother Ben and I grew up going to Graceland on the holidays. At the end of each day, when the visitor tours were finally over, we'd hang out in the house with our family, eating big dinners and running wild, jumping on the couches. Jumping on the couches? What? Y'all were jumping on the couches? The couches that we can only look at? Playing pool. They got to play the pool tables. That's pretty amazing, though it was open to the public when we were there. Graceland was just our home. It's a strange and incredible thing to have your family's history preserved forever in the place where it all happened. It's as though all the life that was lived in that house, all the laughter, the tears, the music, the heartbreak, the love, is still being lived over and over down the staircase, in the walls. I feel my ancestors there. You mean, Riley, you feel Elvis there? You should. Elvis and Lisa. Your grandfather. I'll say it. There are apparently at least 6 vortices in the world, like Hawaii and Jerusalem, places with an energy that scientifically acts up. Graceland was like that. So this, I think this is Lisa. Hard to tell. When you were there, you could feel it. You'd feel good, recharged. Yep, here's Lisa. My dad went there to recharge. The top floor of Graceland was just his suite and my room. And that's it. The door to the upstairs would usually be shut, and nobody would ever come up there except the 2 of us. Even as a child, I knew this was super special. Nobody, aside from maybe a girlfriend, had one-on-one access like that. Upstairs at Graceland, just my room and his room, a sanctuary to be with him. His bedroom had a giant double vinyl black and gold door, which opened up to a small hallway, and then just around the corner was my bedroom. When I came upstairs, I had to walk by his bedroom to get to mine. If the vinyl doors were shut, it meant he was asleep. If they were open, I was up to no good, which I often was. I had to sneak by. But whenever those doors were open, I always made sure to look in to see what he was doing. He'd either be watching TV or talking to people or reading. There was a house across the pasture that my dad had bought for my grandfather. My dad was nocturnal, and once in a while he would wake me up and put me in a golf cart and take me over there to visit Vernon, who was never really ready for it. And that just made me laugh. So, it's because it's sweet. Elvis didn't want to leave Lisa there without him. So, that's a great sign of a father. Yeah, his hours were kind of weird. But he wasn't going to leave his daughter where she could maybe stumble down the stairs and get hurt. Or something happened. God forbid she go looking for him or something like that. Somebody kidnapped. So he loved Lisa and would wake her up and take her over there to visit Vernon, who was never really ready for it. We'd hang out there for an hour or 2 and then drive back to the house. I couldn't get away with much when Vernon was around. He was more of an authoritative figure to me. I wasn't close to him. I would avoid him at all costs. I wish I'd had a different relationship with my grandfather, but I just kind of hid from him. Those night rides to Vernon, though, were just really a moment that my dad wanted to spend alone with me. That's sweet. I actually liked it, and I think that's pretty true. I mean, Elvis was always a lonely person, and he loved his little girl. So that's precious. I'm really glad Lisa had those memories, and she could put them down for us. All right, my dad was very Southern. No one says, "God damn," like a Southern person in the right way, with the sound, with the right soul to it. And I wasn't trying to sound like Elvis there. I'm just trying to not say that word. When it's done right, it's funny. I heard it all the time. My dad and all of his guys said it the same way. I wanted to go to the pet store, so one night my dad shut it down, took me there along with his entourage. We all got to pick out a pet. I picked out a little white foofy dog, and my dad picked out a Pomeranian named Edmund. A little while I was in my room, and they had brought his breakfast up to his room, which they always did. Then I heard, "God damn," so loud, I ran into his room, and he said, "That John just stole my bacon." He probably said, "Oh, that GD dog just stole my bacon." Edmund had jumped onto his bed, taken a piece of bacon, and run off with it downstairs. He was so mad at the dog. Edmund became my Aunt Delta's dog after that. Other times I'd be up in my room watching TV and I'd hear GD, and I'd go along the hallway to find his room and find out what was happening. "GD, I can't sneeze. I need to sneeze and I can't do it." I remember him saying once until he finally got the sneeze out. I had 2 cupboards full of stuffed animals in my room, and one day I thought I saw something in there, maybe a mouse or a rat or something, and it freaked me out, so I ran and got my dad. Daddy, something's in my room." When my dad grabbed his nightstick and a cane, went into my room and shut the door behind him. Then all I heard was a bunch of banging and thrashing noises and him yelling, "GD, son of a beep!" He was beating the crap out of the stuffed animals trying to find this thing, whatever the heck it was. But it kept running away from him, and in the end he did get it unalived, but no one moved it. And I remember there was a bad smell in there for a month after. Now that, I know Elvis probably told somebody to get rid of it, but I guess nobody did. Another time I was in my room and another "GD, son of a bee," this time coming from the front of the house, then a loud gunshot. I went downstairs and found my dad sitting underneath a tree in a lounge chair. A snake had been coming down the tree and was about to bite his foot, so he shot it. He scared everybody else. People wouldn't laugh if he seemed upset, but I knew him, so those kind of things were funny to me. He just kind of had a funny anger about him. It made me love him even more. I had terrible earaches, and one time my dad rushed me in the wee hours of the morning to Dr. Cantor. I was screaming bloody murder from the pain. Dr. Cantor pulled out some kind of device to get the wax out, or whatever it was, and I was screaming so loudly my dad could not take it, and he left the room. He didn't want to leave, but he also couldn't bear what was going to happen. He was up against the wall in the hallway, completely white. After Dr. Cantor pulled whatever it was out of my ear, my dad picked me up and carried me out. Later, I had to have a tonsillectomy. My dad was there in the hospital for that too. I remember being given ice cream, which obviously no child would be upset about, but it was painful to eat anything, so I made some kind of face every time I had to swallow. My dad was sitting next to my hospital bed just waiting for me to swallow, and then he would start laughing. He thought that face was so funny. So, what do we think about the book so far? Personally, I think it's wonderful so far. I mean, it's full of honesty and truth, and it shows that how much Lisa loved her daddy, how much her daddy loved Lisa. I know there's going to be some details that are going to be hard to get at in this book, and I promise I'll bring you some more tomorrow on this book. Well, depending on how much y'all actually watch this, maybe you don't want to watch it. I'm not sure. There's probably a lot of people reading it and talking about it. But if you guys do decide to continue watching it, you made it to this part, and I'm definitely going to keep reading the book for y'all, regardless, whether it's tomorrow or the next day. But if it's a lot of views, I'm definitely going to read it again tomorrow, because I know who wants to wait. Who wants to wait? I don't want to wait. I'm not, and I swear I'm not peeking ahead. Yes, I know I read a section. A couple of different little sections where I turned in there and read it and some of that stuff, but I haven't read the book all the way through, and I want to be surprised just like you. I want to feel the emotions just like you. So anyhow, make sure you keep tuning in for Elvis and Kathy. I got a new episode out there today. I put out earlier today, Child Bride, my Army Days with Elvis, and then this new book. I'll read it when I get through with that one, and I'll probably be reading the this book, The Faith of Elvis, A Story Only a Brother Can Tell, Billy Stanley, to see what's in there, whether it's some great stuff or baloney, I'm not sure. We'll be able to figure it out together. But this is Rare Elvis Photos. saying thanks so much for choosing to continue to watch these videos. TCB, TLC, keep defending Elvis, keep defending Lisa, and take care of yourselves. Most importantly, feel loved, give love, be loved. You know, that's what Elvis was about, and that's what we need to be about. All right, over now.